All right. Valentine's Day was great, and it made me think of relationships. And relationships make me think of culture, and culture makes me think of church, and church makes me think, and so on and so what it means to be human, because that's just how I think. One thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. And so I thought, what better thing than around Valentine's Day to talk about a sermon that has nothing to do with relationships, but fundamentally impacts relationships. And so today, we are talking about what is it replacing? That's the title of the message. What is it replacing? I'm not sure that the title actually fits exactly what I wanted to say, but it's the best that I could do for now. And I thought to myself, what is it in our life that we use to replace presence? What is it in our life that we use to replace the uncomfortable elements that come with this gift that Rachel described of being alive? Because being alive is a tremendous gift, but it's also difficult. It's challenging. It's sometimes feels unbearable. We were talking about that at our Valentine's Day lunch, about life, and Rachel said it can be agonizing. And I said it's a gift. And that was quite the role reversal, because usually I'm the one that would say it's agonizing. And she's the one that says it's a gift. And both are true, but everybody feels those things at different times. And unfortunately, we live in a world where people are willing to exploit agony, to exploit the difficulties of life for their own benefit. And in doing so, they take away the value of living, which is presence. Life is its own reward. Think about what you get when you accept Jesus. The reward that you get as a person, the true reward is relationship with God. That's the real reward. But the initial reward is eternal life. So life is the reward that you get. If life is the reward, it's not simply that you get a life without suffering, but you get more life. So life is the reward. And if life is the reward, what does that say about how we should treat the reward that we have? We have life. We're living. You're alive. It might be hard. It might be painful. I'll guarantee you there's days that you wish you weren't. But you are alive. And that is the greatest gift that God can give you, is this gift of life. And in order to enjoy it fully, you have to be present in it. You can't be constantly trying to escape it. But the pressures of this world are such that they will design ways for you to try to seek to escape it. And I thought about something when I was at my follow-up surgery. I don't know if you can hear it. I had surgery on my nose. I know they showed you a video. Not like trying to be pretty. It was a septoplasty and a turbinoplasty. Elder, don't look at me like that. I'm not trying to get like a Barbie nose. I couldn't breathe. It was so bad, the doctor said it was like one of the worst cases he's ever seen. So that he said it looked like a bomb went off on my nose. Because here's the reality. I've been punched in the face so many times, Pastor Todd, that my nose had, my septums were at septal spurs at 90-degree angles with my bones. And I thought I was breathing well, comparatively, and now I'm realizing, with a swollen nose full of silts, I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I can breathe so much better now than I could before the surgery. So, anyway, that's why, thank you. I'm excited about it too. I can finally sleep and breathe and talk about a gift. Being able to breathe through your nose is a gift. And, but I was waiting at the follow-up, and my instinct was to pull out my phone and start to look at YouTube videos while I was waiting in the doctor's office. And I thought, this is an interesting thing that I'm doing. I have this moment, and I'm having to fill it with something. And I thought, what would I do and how would I feel if every day I put on my pants and there were 2 pills in it? And I could take those pills and boredom would go away, pain would go away, anxiety would go away. I had them endlessly, every morning, 2 pills in my pocket. This is a form of technology that could ease my circumstances. It sounds amazing. It sounds like it'd be useful in an emergency situation. It sounds like it's something that we would all want and desire. But I think the tendency would be for us to start taking them at inappropriate times. I think the temptation would be that when something feels uncomfortable, we take it for the first time. When it feels available, we take it, and then all of a sudden we get used to taking something. And if you think about it, that's exactly what happened with opioids. We took opioids because they eliminated pain, and when people realized they were so good at eliminating pain, it didn't eliminate just physical pain, it also eliminated emotional pain. The part of the brain that feels physical pain also processes emotional pain. So these things, these miracle drugs, this technology was capable of blocking pain. So you have pain in your leg, pain in your back, pain in your bones, and then all of a sudden you have this miracle technology that deals with not only that pain, but the pain of your marriage, the pain of your life. Not only that, it creates changes in your brain and in your body to such an extent that there becomes a interactive dependency. And the reality is, all of us know what a crisis that has been. All of us know how dangerous that has been because unlike other technologies that do similar things, the technology of pain medication created an immediate effect and an immediate crisis because when you take too much, you die. Because people's lives were ruined. There's likely not anybody in here who hasn't been touched by that opioid crisis. And so all of us would look at something like that if it was so widely accessible. And one of the criticisms of the medication industry was that they made it too accessible to everyone. They said, how could you push this on everybody and think that there would be no consequence? And people responded fiercely. People reacted strongly. Not strong enough, but strong enough for there to be action taken. Strong enough for there to be the seeds of change, and we're beginning to see the seeds of that change take root and produce fruit. There are less people dying now than there were 2 years ago. That's a wonderful thing. It's dropping by double-digit percentages. And all of us could look at that crisis and say, we want that solved, and we want the effects of that technology to be taken care of. But the reason that we responded to something like those technology and those pills and opioids is because the crisis that it produced was immediate. It wasn't a slow erosion that we all adopted. The reality is, every time that I look at my phone in the doctor's office, every time, I'm altering how I interact with technology, and that technology is altering my brain. It's altering how I deal with time. It's altering how I deal with presence. And I looked around and saw my kid on an iPad, and I knew the phone I had in my pocket. I saw what Rachel's phone. She does Instagram. I do YouTube. My kids do YouTube. All of us have this access, and I realized, look at how normalized this technology is that has replaced presence in everyday life, that has replaced boredom in everyday life. Look how easy it is to adopt something that starts out as an exception and ends up as a rule. What's interesting is what ends up happening, and I experienced this as a parent, is that you begin to, am I bleeding? Don't do that. I'm paranoid. Elder, if you go like this at all, I'm going to think there's just blood dripping from my nose. So just that's been happening. So forgive me, please. I don't want to gross you out. As a parent, what I've noticed is that something that starts as an occasional thing ends up the thing that you have to make rules around. Notice That what ends up happening with most parents and most people is we don't go, here's your allotted time for this, but we say, you can't have this at the table. You can't have this. In other words, this can't intrude with this time that we now have to protect. We have to make rules around this sacred time because this technology has effectively taken such a place in your life that it now can invade everything if we're not conscious of it. And the reality is that none of us really fully embrace it as a crisis, even if we know it's bad. None of us look at it and say, this is something that needs to be dealt with immediately. It's something that encroaches and starts slowly, and it seems helpful, and it seems like something that can benefit us. And it's one of those miraculous things. It's like having those 2 pills in your pocket when you're at a restaurant and your child is screaming, and you know that if you just put on that episode of something on YouTube, or just give them that tablet, that they will stop making everyone look at you in the restaurant. And you know you can't slap them. You know you can't shake them. You know you can't just grab them. He's like, you got to shut up right now. I'm going to rip your head off. Because everybody's looking at you. What's this parent going to do? You know they're judging you. Even as they smile, oh, they're judging you. How are you going to do? And you're sweating. You have that bead of sweat, and you're like, all of this is going on. You're just, well, 5 minutes of tablet time, honey. But when we get out of here, I'll tell you what right now, what I'm going to do. It's a solution. It's a solution to human problems. And that's wonderful to have solutions to human problems. But what appears to be a solution becomes the problem that alters the human. Now we're in a different place. The reality is that we adopt certain things, and if we look back, we notice that we have no longer have the ability to tolerate waiting. We notice that all of a sudden we no longer have the ability to tolerate silence. We notice that our interactions with people are shorter. That sermons have to get more condensed in church. That our attention spans are altered. That we don't quite make eye contact the way. I don't know about you, but when I talk to people, the younger they are, the less likely they are to make eye contact with me. The less likely they are to interact with me in a meaningful way. I don't know how it is because I'm married and I started dating in my 20s, thank God, but I've heard it's a nightmare in the relationship field. That you could look somebody in their face, be in front of them, but you are judged by a profile. That sounds horrific. One of the things that we're trying to do here at StoryLife is recreate the field of personal relationships, embodied relationships. We want to have singles come here and connect. I want people to see each other face to face. My hope is that they don't come here and just measure people through the screens, right? But what do? We connect through a digital versions of ourselves. And what are those digital versions of ourselves? They're altered versions of ourselves. They're not even the full story about ourselves. They're the highlighted portions of ourselves that we want to present. So what are we teaching the world as we do these things and further entrench ourselves in these ways? We are teaching the world, and that is ourselves, that to be human is to create a highlight reel for other people to judge. It's not to live a full experience. It's to create a moderated one that hopefully can be adopted for some of your goals and relationships. We end up adopting technologies in ways that make us stop noticing what we've stopped building. When you can supplement building with technology, when you can supplement building with reduced anxiety, when you can supplement wrestling with God with resting with technology, the tendency is to take the path of least resistance. It's difficult to be inspired. It's difficult to hear God. It's difficult to build what He wants you to build. It's difficult because it requires an anxious silence. And I don't mean that in a way that you need to be anxious to hear God, but I mean that you will have your Garden of Gethsemane. You will have your top of the mountain moment. You will have these moments where it requires nothing but you and presence and silence and an awareness of what God is trying to do in you and through you and where he's trying to take you. And if you have taught yourself to avoid that at all circumstances and at all cost, then you will not hear your own destiny in God's voice. And this isn't anything new. There is this human tendency to try to replace the still parts, the anxious parts, the difficult parts, the absent parts of the human experience with technology. And the consequences are always the same. We see it in Exodus 32. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves unto Aaron and said unto him, Make us gods, which shall go up before us. I'm going to say that again. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, Moses, the leader, is absent, which means for the people that God is absent. They interpret the absence of Moses as the absence of God. That's an interesting interpretation, because I don't see God as absent in anything, though I understand why they felt his absence. Either God is the God of everything, or he's the God of some things. And if he's only the God of some things, then he's not God, he's just a God. And I don't serve a God, I serve the God. And my God is not a God of some things. My God is a God of all things. That's what makes him my God. He's the God of all things. And so even when I feel his absence, I know he's not absent. There were moments in my immature Christian days that I thought the absence of a Moses, the absence of a word, the absence of a command, the absence of a feeling, the absence of something was the absence of God. And now I realize in my rest that there is no absence of God. That just because Moses is at the top of the mountain does not mean that God is not in my life. And God will create these moments of perceived absence to let you see who you are and where your anxieties take you. He will let you see what you're willing to fill that space with. And it's interesting because what they fill the space with is technology. Now you're saying, come on, Brad, that's a stretch. They filled the space with an idol. Well, let's look at the nature of that idol. Let's look at the nature of that idol. First of all, what do they say to Aaron? Make us. Make something. Produce something. Create something. Invent something that will do for us what God did when he was present. Make us gods. A people who were rescued by a God now want gods, because what they see God is, the holy, true, living, one true God, as is a technology. Make us gods in the plural, because God is a technology to get us what we want. And if God becomes a technology to get you what you want, the moment he's not giving you what you want, you'll try to replace him with another technology. I don't care if it's a denomination. I don't care if it's a religion. You'll try to replace him with whatever's working. And at that point, you're not operating in faith. You're operating in witchcraft. For as this is Moses, the man that they brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what has become of him. Don't outsource your relationship with God. Do not outsource your relationship with God. Because if you think it's in me, or you think it's in somebody else, or you think it's in the prophet, or you think it's in your parent, or if you think it's in... What will end up happening is in the absence of that person, because that person is not God, you will look for supplementation. You will look for another. We wot not has become of him. And Aaron said unto them, break off the golden earrings, which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings, which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron. And he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool. After he had made it a molten calf. A molten calf. And they said, these be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it. And Aaron made a proclamation. I can't even read this. And said, this is just wild. And said, tomorrow is a feast to the Lord. They rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. And the Lord said unto Moses, go get thee down, for thy people, which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt, have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, these be thy gods. Can you imagine, just for a second, if you're Moses, and you're up there doing the work of your people and listening to God, and you're just, you're like taking notes, and you're into it, and all of a sudden God's like, hey, pause. By the way, I need you to go back down there, because your people have just made golden calf that they're now worshiping. And they're declaring feast days and sacrifices to this golden calf that they say, what would you, I've been gone for 10 days, 15, it's just already. That'd be like, come back from the DRC and y'all have statues in the back. I'm going, what in the world happened? Rachel, where were you? And the Lord said unto Moses, get thee down. They have turned aside quickly of the way which I have commanded them, and made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and said, these be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt. And the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen these people, and behold, is it a stiff-necked people? Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, that I might consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. I just want to pause and just say what I love about God is he's a tough guy. He's a tough guy when he has to be, but he always leaks his heart. I'm going to go down there and spank some people because I love them so much. I want to make them great. That is the heart of your Father. The heart of him is, I want to make thee a great nation. And too many people think the heart of him is the wrath. Moses besought the Lord his God and said, Lord, why doth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, for mischief did bring them out to slay them in the mountains and consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from thy fierce wrath and repent of this evil against thy people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants, to whom thou swarest by thine own self, and saidst unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and all of this land that I have spoken I will give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto this people. I love it. The Lord repented of the evil. And Moses turned and went down from the mount, and the two tables of the testimony were in his hand, and the tables were written on both their sides. And on one side and the other they were written. The tables were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, graven on the tables. When Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said unto Moses, there is a noise of war in the camp. And he said, it is not the voice of them that shout for mastery, neither is it the voice of them that cry for being overcome, but the noise of them that sing do I hear. The noise of them that sing do I hear. And it came to pass, as soon as the camp came nigh unto the camp, he saw the calf and the dancing, and Moses' anger waxed hot. What happened, Moses? What happened to your call to repentance, huh? And he cast the tables out of his hand and brake them beneath the mount. And he took the calf which they had made and burnt it in the fire, and ground it to powder, and strawed it upon water, and made the children of Israel drink of it. You want to consume? I'm going to show you what happens when you consume. I'm going to make you consume in a way that you don't want to consume, and you're going to see that what you think you consume consumes you. And Moses said unto Aaron, what did thou people do unto thee, that thou hast bring such a great sin upon them? And Aaron said, let not the anger of my Lord wax hot. Thou knowest the people, they are set on mischief. For they said unto me, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as this Moses, the man that brought us out of the land of Egypt, we want not what has become of him. And I said unto him, whoever hath any gold, let him break it off. And they gave it to me, and I cast it into the fire. And there came out of this calf. And it just came out. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies, Moses stood in the gate of the camp and said, who is on the Lord's side, let him come to me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him. And he said unto them, thus saith the Lord God of Israel, put every man his sword by his side, and go in and out from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay every man his brother, and every man his companion, and every man his neighbor. And the children of Levi did according to the word of Moses, and there fell of the people that day about 3,000 men. Moses says, consecrate yourself to the day of the Lord, even every man upon his son and upon his brother, that may bestow his blessing this day. Moses instructs them. I love that. God says, all right, I'm out. Moses goes down and says, yeah, thank you, you're going to spare this people. That's wonderful. And then Moses instructs them to kill him. And the reality is that Moses was protecting what remained of his people through an act of crisis. I think what he saw that disturbed him so greatly was the glee, the joy that people had in finding a replacement for God. That glee was not simply about deliverance from Egypt, because we know that the idols they worshiped did not deliver them from Egypt. That glee was deeper. It was a rebellion against the full experience of life itself. It was a rebellion against the waiting. It was a rebellion against the wilderness. It was a rebellion against the silence. It was a rebellion against the pause. And this is what happened when you rebel against the waiting, when you rebel against the wilderness, when you rebel against the silence, when you rebel against the pause, when you rebel against the perceived absence of God. What you end up rebelling against is life itself. What you end up rebelling against is God itself. What you end up rebelling against is the experience that he crafted to shape you and make you and give you remembrance of him and take you to your future. And if you rebel against that and take glee in it, then you'll end up contaminating those who were shaped and prepared and ready to take the full experience of what God is giving them. You cannot take glee in stopping the experience that God has given you and expect it not to contaminate the Levites. They have to be dealt with. They have to be separated. They have to move on, because they cannot afford over a period of time for this to be a recurring pattern. They cannot afford over a period of time for their capacity to resist the anxiety of life and the experience of the wilderness to be eroded to the point where they begin to worship the calf as well. This is what crisis serves. This is the point of crisis. It's a corrective mechanism by which it realigns us. Us who are the children of God with his will and his purpose. What I think is most interesting about Exodus 32, there's a lot of interesting things, but what you see is that they make not just an idol, but a calf. And a calf, even to the Israelites, was consumable. They could eat cow. They make it of gold. They take and mix fashion and aesthetics, their gold, the gold of their earrings, the jewelry that they wore. They put it into a fire, and out comes this consumable god. I find it endlessly fascinating that the god they made was something they also consumed. There's something inside of us that wants to take what we consume and make a god out of it. And the connection is that what we consume relieves the things we don't like, the pressures we don't want to feel. That's why we consume them. It relieves something. It reduces something. It takes care of something. But it is easy for that consumption to become a god. And there is a link between thinking that God is a God of ease and thinking that that which produces ease is a god. And if you confuse those two things, you'll end up doing exactly what they do in the wilderness. And we've done that even to this day. We have begun to substitute God's plan for life with man's technology for reducing its problems. We've treated the consumption of things as a god, and it becomes a consumable object. And what's interesting about what Aaron does is he creates an altar. He creates an altar, which means that he is prepared to be prostrate before this thing. He is prepared to submit his very humanity to this technology. And there are eerie parallels. We might not be making golden calves today, but how often do we submit and prostrate our humanity to things that were meant to serve us and not us serve them? If it's not a phone, it's an economic system, a political system, money. It might not be a technology that I can think of, but a technology nonetheless that you end up prostrating yourself before. And all of us have this tendency because all of us want life to be easier. And all of us consume in order to make life easier. But if presence is replaced by consumption, what we end up with is an idol. If waiting is constantly replaced by relief, then we don't learn how to wait upon the right things. We're not learning the experience and the design that God gave us for this life. And this is the problem that happened in Egypt, and this is the problem that we have now. We are conditioning a crisis. We are creating a crisis for people. We are allowing that to permeate and fill our homes in such a way that our relationships are eroding. They're degrading, and it breaks my heart. People are literally losing the cognitive capacity to carry on relationships in a healthy manner. And that is just not an attack on relationships, that is an attack on God. Anything that is anti-human is anti-God. I want you to get this rule. I want you to get this rule. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. I know how to read y'all's faces. I'm getting there. Anything that is anti-human is anti-God. Get this rule in your mind. If it's anti-human, it's anti-God. This is why we're so incarnational. This is why the God-man matters. It's not just about who God is, it's about who we are. Anything that is anti-human is anti-Christ. Let me prove this to you. The one time we get a clear definition of what the Antichrist is, it says those who deny that Christ came in the flesh. Antichrist. Those who deny the humanity of God. Those who deny his humanity. Antichrist. Antichrist is fundamentally anti-human. And if you want to know end time secret, all you have to do is look at the patterns. Antichrist will be technologically driven, and it will be anti-human. Whatever that pattern is, whatever that archetype is, I'm not one of these people that obsess over eschatology, but I can read the patterns, and it's obvious. It's a calf, it's a phone, it's transhumanism, it's some kind of technology that seems to help, but that humans end up prostrate before. If it reduces your humanity, then it reduces God. If it reduces the experience that God designed for you, if it mocks it, if it minimizes it, if it tries to erase it, if it tries to replace it, it's anti-Christ. To be anti-human is to be anti-God. Sorry. This little thing tells me if I'm drinking enough water. And so, if relationships are eroding, if something is even over time making it harder for us to date, for us to have families, for us to engage in conversation, for us to be present, for us to sustain attention towards people, for us to care empathetically about people, anything that is doing that is anti-God. Because God says, love the Lord with all your heart and love others as yourself. He always connects God and people, and he himself is the connection between God and people. And this is why anything that wants to erase humanity will first have to erase Jesus. This is why I said pause on everything else. We're going to land and stop and talk about Jesus. I see the urgency of it. I see the necessity of it. There's no point in anything else. I want to talk about the God-man. Everything has to land with the God-man. Let's deal with that, and everything else will fall into place. Let's stay there. And I know it's necessary. I was with a friend of mine just another night, and he was talking about how Islam and Christianity are just similar with a couple different beliefs. They have a few disagreements, but fundamentally they're a religion. And I didn't argue with him. What's the point? But I said in my heart, there's an urgency to clarify where we stand out. There is no other faith that says that God is man. There is no other faith that says we are in his image. There is no other faith that elevates us to the apple of the Creator's eye. This is the only one. And if you can replace us, and you have to replace us by replacing Jesus. You have to knock that domino down. And if somebody can say, oh, he's just like Muhammad. He's just like Buddha. He's just like Krishna. He's just another idea. He's just another religion. It's just another story. They're not attacking him. They're attacking you. Because if Jesus is not God, then I am erasable. I am just a footnote in history. Humanity can come and it can go, and the rocks can cry out. But the rocks won't cry out, because my God has wounds in his hands and pain in his side, and he is forever bound to my form. And if you want to see God, he's going to look like this, with hands and a nose and eyes and a body that you cannot replace with anything else. With technology, with calves, with gold, with computer. He walks with flesh and blood. You are not replaceable, not because I say it, but because God says it. And if you believe in God and you believe in Jesus, then you must believe in your value. Then you must believe when he says, I know you before I put you in your mother's womb. You must believe when he says, you are the apple of my eye. You must believe he says, I have a plan for you of good things. Trust me. Follow me through this wilderness. Follow me through this moment. I'm never absent. I'm never gone. I'm never departed. There's an urgency to it. I'm not simply fighting. We're not fighting. StoryLife does not exist just to tell stories and do church. We exist to hold the line and say, you can't cross this Jesus thing without erasing us. And we're going to be the bulwark. We're going to say, no, this is it. This is our stand. This is where we're at. You can talk about every other thing, do every other thing in church, but for us, we're going to hold the line when it comes to the God-man. We live or die on the God-man. It's how I determined I was going to stay in ministry. I said, I could see myself not pastoring. I could see myself even not preaching. I can't see myself not telling the story about Jesus. Because if I stop telling the story about Jesus, I stop telling the story about Brad. I am with you unto the end of days. I'm with you until the end of days. And there's times that I want to replace him with something that makes those days easier. And he says, no, Brad. Present. Relationship. Fullness of the experience. Live. Live. And as you live in me. You live in me. And we see the exact opposite of Exodus 32 and Mark 5, and I'll be fast. In Mark 5, we see how God does things. We see how God functions. We see who he is. We see the opposite of absence. We see presence. And they came over unto the other side of the sea and into the garden, the country of the Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship immediately, y'all put my clock on, please. I just want to make sure I'm doing good. And when he came out of the ship immediately, there came out of the tombs a man with the unclean spirit who has his dwelling among the tombs, bound with chains, plucked asunder. Devils besought him, unclean spirit, swine was told, close, departed, Decapolis, passed over, ship, other side, comes to rule the synagogue, barely saying, daughter, little point, pray thee, Jeff, suffered many things, physicians, what happens when you don't write the starting verse. All right, suffered many things. Jesus went with them, and much people followed him and thronged him. And a certain woman, this is the key, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, had spent all that she had, and was nothing better, but rather grew worse. And when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up. She felt in her body that she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about the press and said, who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest, who touched me? And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. Go in peace and be whole of thy plague. That is the opposite of what happens in Exodus 32. And it's an interesting contrast because the stories parallel each other and they function as opposing witnesses to how we handle the problems that we face in life. The Israelites, in the perceived absence of God, created a technology that allowed God to be replaced by something consumable. A woman, in the perceived absence of God, understood that God was still the only technology that could make her whole. She did not create an idol. She did not aim for replacement. She aimed for pursuit. And she pursued through throngs of people. When it was unpopular, when it was unconventional, when it did not make sense, when it did not follow the rules, when it was condemnable because it was inappropriate, she was alone. But she pursued. And in that pursuit of the only technology that could make her whole, she found a person waiting for her. She found God waiting for her. And her wholeness came through the touch, through the proximity of his garment. And what does he say? He says, daughter. Because God's end goal is always a relationship. The parallel here is that if you replace God with technology, any form, I use technology in the broad sense, that's anything that makes life better and is meant to serve you, anything, then you'll end up with destruction. But if you abide by presence and relationship, you'll end up whole. You'll end up whole. God is not always interested in making your life easier. He's not always interested in making your life easier. But he has made your life meaningful, and he's made himself available. And what he wants, more than anything, is the simple difficulty of relational presence. It's simple, but it's difficult. He wants presence with him. He wants presence with people. And if it reduces that, then it's an enemy to God and his purpose in your life and his creation. Practically, what does this mean? I'm not saying you're making golden calves out of gold. I am saying that all of us have places that we've prostrated ourselves before something that was meant to serve us. My to-do from this sermon, my big accomplishment this week, I deleted YouTube from my phone. Your pastor. And I want you to walk away from a message not just going, that was too long, or that was the greatest thing I've ever heard because he's the greatest preacher that's ever touched a microphone. I know y'all say that's too long. More likely that's the one. I'm just kidding. I'm not joking. Oh, shucks. I want y'all to walk away and do something. Your pastor's telling you to do something. I don't know what it is for you. I can tell you this. I know social media has infected people. And I know cell phones are everywhere. I know a technology that was supposed to be, hey, call somebody. I couldn't think of a single reason I have a cell phone. Not one. Outside of the demand of society. I try to think of it. Right? If I'm in an emergency, I need to make a phone call. That's it. Other than that, I had a rotary phone at home. Right? I tell people I'm going to meet them. I see them face to face. And now there's a little box, and it's not just a box that makes calls. It's a TV and a computer in my pocket. And I carry it around. And now if I keep mine on silent most of the time. And people are like, I couldn't reach you through your magic box. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I'm looking people face to face. So that's why my texts are always late. Like I wait till 2 a.m. and then you'll just see a flood of texts from Pastor Brad come in. Because that's when I designate my time. I mean, it's what it is. And I'm the weird one. I'm considered the weird one. I'm considered the outsider for trying to be human. You have this thing on your pocket that goes, at any moment you can be relieved of the boredom of this doctor's office, the anxiety of this conversation. I will comfort you. I will create identity for you. I will transport you to magical lands with magical people. Just give yourself to me. I just want you to resist that a little bit more this week. Whatever that means to you, I want you to resist it a little bit more this week. God, give us the power to serve you and you alone. Because God, you have served us well with your Son, Jesus. Let us be more human, and in being more human, we will be more like you. Not human in the ways that hurt, but human in the image-bearing sense. Created by you to look like you. Created by you for relationship with you and others. Let us make it a high priority, God, to have fulfilling meaningful relationships in our life that are not eroded by anything, but are enhanced by your presence, by the wisdom of your word, by our prayer life, God, and by service to one another. Make StoryLife a place, God, that the story of Jesus can be told. And as a pastor, that sounds weird to say because it seems like there are millions of churches this day doing that very thing. But God, I know somehow it's not the case that people know the story of our God. Not in the way that you want them to, not in the way that you mean. And Lord, let us be a vehicle, but that story is made clear. That it saturates the culture of the world. That it creates a true revival, which is a revival of the heart. And a people for you to have relationship with. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. What time is it?